Today's episode of the Gestalt Education Show is brought to you by three of our favorite sponsors, Human Locomotion, Core 360 Belt, and Dynamic Disc Designs. All the information can be found below. By now, you have definitely heard us talk about them, so check out the show notes, click the links, use the codes, and make sure you support our favorite people. As always, we got a great episode lined up for you today, and thanks for tuning in. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Gestalt Education Show. We are breaking the record for most times on the podcast today.
Talk about wearing out your welcome.
I know. She just keeps asking and asking and asking, and so we keep bringing her back. So we are happy to have on Dr. Lindsay Mumma. So,
just thrilled to be here, really.
And we were with her last weekend.
We were with her last weekend, and we decided I don't want to do it in Raleigh, so we're going to do this podcast in Troy. So, it kind of sparked our interest a little bit. And the reason that we're going to talk about this is that Lindsay has a unique practice. Number one, we've talked about that extensively. Pelvic floor, females, postpartum, prepartum, everything. But we're not going to talk about today. She was one of the... She was one of the first to kind of adopt a different way of getting people in your practice and adding services to your practice. And that was in the form of a cold plunge. And so since then, it's kind of evolved into a cold plunge and a sauna. And what I really want to talk about today is, number one, I think as chiropractors, we're always looking for ways to serve our patients, number one, but then also ways to increase your cash flow, period. And so, it's kind of gets knocked at chiropractors that if you're not in a high volume practice, it's impossible to make money. It's impossible to have these big practices and things like that. And we're trying to debunk that a lot with what we're doing, not only on the teaching circuit, but on the podcast. And then, so today. So Lindsay, you were literally one of the first people to get a plunge. And when I say plunge, the actual plunge.
The plunge.
And so can you maybe just start from the beginning? Like, what first intrigued you to get the plunge? Was there some, personal things there? Or was it all just, hey, this is going to be a great addition to the practice?
It's a really great question. I want to completely correct the record. I actually had the sauna first.
Oh, no way.
And then I got the plunge.
Okay.
Yeah. And I definitely do want to serve patients and bring in cash flow, but I also got both of those things 100% for myself. I was just like, so the initial story, it was not any great idea that I had, actually. My husband sometimes will listen to other people telling him the same things that I've said. If it comes from someone else, he's a really, really wonderful man. I love him dearly.
Smart man.
And he really listened to our former acupuncturist. Dar would say something to him, and he's like, well, Dar said, and I'm like, I freaking said that to you. It's like the Modern Family, the Cobb salad, like that was my life. And so I was trying to get fuel for the fire of getting a sauna in my house. And so I had been diagnosed with some autoimmune conditions after the birth of my second son. And I was like, okay, I need a sauna. I need to be like really prioritizing detoxification. And I wanted to get a sauna. And I was trying to convince Chris that we needed a sauna at home. So I had an appointment with Dar, and I was like, hey, what do you think about sauna? She was like, oh, I love it. And then I'd have a place to send detox patients. And I was like, huh? She was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I want a sauna in my house. And she was like, oh, why wouldn't you have it at your practice? And I was like, I don't know, Dar. Why wouldn't I have it in my practice? Right. That's such a good idea. So it's not my idea at all. I'm happy to talk about it, but it was Dar's idea. She said, why don't you have it at your practice? Because then you can use it, but you can also let your patients use it, and it's going to benefit them too. And you're not going to use it all day, every day. So you can still get in it every single day, and other people can benefit from it. So then that mindset is what I took into literally just creating my practice as my own personal playground that I get to invite other people to. So I had the sauna in 2017 or 2018. I don't remember. Doesn't matter. I've had it for a while. And so we had that. And then in 2021, the very end of 2020, I was looking at the space that I was going to move into in January. And I was touring the space. There's a shower, there's a floor drain, and there's a little bit of space because it's a handicap accessible bathroom. And I was like, we're getting a plunge. And at the time, there weren't any Instagram advertisements. There wasn't anything for like purchasing plunges, which seems weird now because they're so popular. But one of our one of the women who had taken a bunch of postpartum classes with me had sent me a video. She's like, Lindsay, you'd be so proud of me. I did an ice bath at my brother's house. And what she sent me was this beautiful white tub that she was sitting in. And so I had been looking for something, and there were mostly just like horse troughs out there for $16,000. It was ridiculous. And so I sent her a message. I was like, hey, do you have any idea what what cold tub your brother had? And she was like, oh yeah, it's this new company. They, used to make float tanks, and then they decided to put a chiller in them. And so they're just starting. And so I looked them up, and it was like $5,000 for this beautiful looking tub. It was the right dimensions. I was like, yes, we're getting. So I think I was like one of the first 100 orders of the Plunge. So whenever I call them, if we ever have an issue, they're like, oh, you have like the original. Like they've continued to upgrade it and upgrade it and upgrade it. We still have the original one. So I got that because I wanted it for myself, because I was at a Wim Hof workshop. I've taken a handful of those, and I realized in a way that made me feel very old that I've been taking ice baths for 20 years because I had to do it as a college athlete. And so like after practice, if you had any sort of injury, they were like, okay, go put that on ice. So you would get into the ice. Like if you had an upper extremity thing, you could just put your arm in, but I had a knee injury. And so I had to sit in the tub because there was no way to get my knee in without getting the rest of my body in. So after every single freaking practice, I had to sit in the ice bath and then, get the saran wrap around my knee and walk to the food hall and get lunch or whatever. And I hated it, but at the same time, like I was able to play without having a lot of pain or dysfunction. So I knew that tool was available to me, and I liked it a lot. I ran a marathon in college, or in chiropractic college, and stupidly drove from Chicago back to Davenport and then couldn't walk. So I was like, I need all the frozen peas in the freezer, because if I don't take an ice bath right now, I'm not gonna be able to function. So it's just kind of been like a thing that I knew this is a good idea. And then, naturopath that I had seen had recommended, finish your shower with a cold rinse. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. What a terrible idea. So
sounds horrible.
It sounds horrible. Why would I do that? Okay, I'm in. So I started doing those in 2012 because I just wanted to get healthy before getting pregnant. So all of that led to me in 2021. I walk into this space and I was like, there's a floor drain. Need that. There's a shower. Want that. I'm getting a cold plunge, and found the cold plunge and bought it, and it's been kicking ever since. We got it in March of 21.
Yeah, beautiful. And so I didn't realize you had the sauna first. So maybe what does it look like in your practice? Just walk us through that. Somebody's interested in this. Maybe you refer a patient to do this. For the people that own a practice, like what does this all entail when you decide to take the plunge, literally take the plunge?
Oh my God, that was so corny. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you need a floor drain for sure. So wherever you are, like plumbing requirements, you need a floor drain. The shower is really nice for two reasons. One, like it's been popularized to do hot and cold, that kind of Nordic cycle. And I love that. And there are great benefits to it. From a logistical standpoint, the amount of like mess of water to do that, you need like a wet room for that to happen. And our sauna doesn't really want to get super soaking wet.
It's a lay down one.
Yeah.
Is sunlighting?
Sunlighting. Yep. And we have the solo pad one. So it's just like a single person unit. People love it because it feels hotter than the ones that are actually nicer. But that doesn't really facilitate getting into the cold and then getting into the hot. So for that, we actually cycle them in the cold plunge and then get in a hot shower and then get back in the cold plunge and then hot shower. And then with those, I typically recommend that people would finish on cold, just because the thermogenesis that you have after the plunge is really one of the big benefits that you get. But the shower is nice too for like, people have so much stuff on their body, like they like lotions, deodorant, dead skin cells, all of that. You want them to rinse off before they get in the plunge. And it's not like the shower before entering the pool that no one listens to. Like it's mandatory. If you're going to get in our plunge, you actually have to take a shower first, because that just keeps the plumbing so much cleaner. And then like you need to be prepared to take care of it, but it's not like the upkeep of a pool, right? We pour hydrogen peroxide in it once a week. We change the filter once a week. And then once or twice a quarter, we'll do a deep clean of it. And so like, fully drain it and clean and, heat it overnight, run some Castile soap through it and call it a day. And in general, the upkeep of it is pretty simple, as long as you're like intentionally kind of being a little bit proactive about it. We've had a few snags within the system. And part of the problem has been that we bought one of the earliest plunges. So they send us, they're like, oh, we're like, hey, this isn't working like it should be. And they send us a new part, but it's for the new plunge, even though we tell them, hey, we got the OG one here. Do you still have these parts around your warehouse? So you for sure need a floor drain. One of the best things that we have is a little squeegee broom looking thing that really helps clean up the water, because you don't want to be doing a bunch of wet towels all over the place. And then the other end of that equation is have laundry in house, because having a really efficient dryer, you can't have a crappy dryer, because drying soaking wet towels takes for freaking ever if your dryer sucks. So the floor drain, the shower, and a laundry system is like a must. We for a little while we tried to say, hey, bring your own towel. That didn't really work. People would forget it, and we just we have laundry anyway. So we have those, and then we also have covers for the sauna. So that's extra laundry. And we have acupuncture table sheets and stuff like that. So laundry is a must, unless you want to pay for a laundry service, but you would need to do it all the time.
And then one of the things that really intrigues me that you've done is you created an experience with this. It's not just like someone signs up to go to a plunge and you say, all right, well, there it is, take a shower and hop in, and then we'll see you on your way out. This is you're building a premium experience built around that.
Yeah. If you've been plunging for 20 years, then you just go get in the water and you crave it. Right. But for most people, some people, it's so much easier if you have someone sitting there and kind of guiding you to find your breath again, to really connect with the moment, because everything in you is screaming, get me the hell out of this water right now. It's so cold. And that's a protective thing, right? If you stay in cold water for too long, you will die. So your body is I should probably leave. And your brain's screaming at you to get out. And if you have someone, calm and connected to the moment, it's okay, I want you on this next exhale. I really want you to focus on just breathing out. That's it. That's all I want you to focus on. And kind of connect you to the present moment again. And you're oh, someone's talking to me, which means I'm not dying.
You're right.
Okay, got it. Right. And it just kind of take you out of that moment. So, and it's also a safety feature, right? If somebody slips getting out because they can't feel their feet when they get out, that's not good. So we added some extra bars. That way, when you step out of the plunge, you can grab onto two separate places at the same time. And we have someone there to literally guard the experience to make sure you're safe. We haven't had any, is this wood?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
This seems like I'm going to knock on wood. We haven't had any, catastrophic things happen. But it is nice to just have someone there who's kind of guiding the space, and then it elevates the experience, right? Because the thing that I have already seen happen is that saunas became really popular. Well, how many people have a sauna sitting in their house that they have not used in weeks or months, right? Because they didn't set an appointment to go and show up. They didn't there was no accountability to doing it. So if you have to kind of make an effort to go and do that, that helps you to actually stay consistent with the practice. But if there's someone who's going to hold your hand through the process, that makes it a little less daunting for people. So we don't hold people's hands through the sauna. They can go in there naked. But we do really offer some emotional hand holding through the plunge experience. And it's really, really helpful. So, even our regular people who come in multiple times per week, Ashley is who does most of the plunges. She's in there with them, and it just kind of becomes a quick little therapy session for them where they're okay, yeah.
So that's one more thing you probably need, though. You need somebody that's tending to it.
That's a good point. Yeah. You don't need that, but I think
so it'd be smart.
It's a good plan to have a person who's going to be able to have that on every single appointment, that this person is available to be there with them for the entirety of their session. So we do 3-minute plunges typically, but we do have a couple of our older members who, they've been around for a little while and they've heard Huberman's research. They're okay, 11 minutes a week. I can get here once a week. I'll do an 11-minute plunge. Sure. But for the most part, we just do 3 minutes, and, the entire appointment is 15 minutes long, and it's a person run therapy. Whereas the sauna, they just book it online. show up at a time and they get in. We'll do kind of one-off plunges like, okay, this is an inflamed joint. You got a really acute something or other. I want you to get in the back and go get in a cold plunge. But for the most part, people book them ahead of time. And it also is like, I mean, it's brought people into the practice because cold plunges are having a moment right now. You know, in 2021, I was begging people like, just get in the water. You'll see. It's amazing. This is so great. And now I'm like, okay, just you have to sign up for an appointment. Like, you know, we're kind of like holding them off the sticks.
And the temperature you keep it at?
It's 39 is the temperature we have it set at. But honestly, like someone's body heat being in there will actually increase the temperature like a degree or two. And so by the end of the day, it's a little bit warmer than at the start of the day, but it
doesn't really matter.
You can't really tell the difference. We used to do warmed up Fridays, like all the time. Every Friday was warm it would start at 50 degrees. And I can tell the difference. I'm like, oh my God, it's a freaking bath. Right. But people are like, it's still cold. Right. Yeah.
I Googled the temperature of the Titanic when it sank when I got out of there just to see like how 26 degrees.
26
I'm like,
degrees. Well, yeah.
It's cold.
You're okay.
Well, and that's kind of like I purposely we structured this. You can go if you're really interested in the research and like the actual like long-term benefits and things like that. I think the Huberman podcast is like has extensively talked about it, and go listen to those. Those are great. But I mean, just short things, cortisol levels, better moods, better everything along those lines, overall inflammatory markers, weight loss, all sorts of good stuff like that. So if you are interested in the science and like an in-depth conversation, go just Google Huberman Lab cold plunge. There's thousands of episodes, it seems like. So, but it also brings up a good point that I wanted to kind of point out too, is that, you know, I think if you don't build that experience around it, nowadays you can get a cold plunge for very inexpensive for your own home. Like you were saying,
there's like the $100 units.
Yeah. And so you can do that. But I think what separates yourself, it's no different than us with chiropractic or what we're doing manual therapy wise. If you don't build the experience and build it to something that people, they feel good when they leave, then it's hard to attract people. But you know, what you've done, and then, you know, one of my good buddies, Jake Alec, he just opened a recovery center in a gym in Chicagoland. And so the same thing, it's an experience. Like you are building something, you're charging a premium price, but it's part of the experience. So I think that's something that can't be overstated enough. So.
I also think like for people who are really looking to do all of these biohacking, life optimization, kind of longevity boosting tools, they add up. Like I have sunk tens of thousands of dollars into these things over time, right? But I'm also making money on them. So it's offset the cost of it. Whereas if you're doing this for yourself, yes, it absolutely is a complete investment in yourself, but you're not going to actually be able to have a quantifiable ROI on that, where you just know you're investing in your future health and in your current moment health, of course, but there are so many people who are like, yeah, I really, really love that stuff. I think I'll just get my own. You can for sure. But do you want thousands of dollars going into that? Or do you want to pay significantly less and just come here and use ours? Right. Is it a little bit more inconvenient? Yes. And that's probably a little bit on purpose, just so that your brain is like, I got to do this thing every week, because we all have plenty of online courses we've never finished, or, you know, podcasts or books we haven't read. They're in our house. We could do them at any time, but we don't. Right. So this gives them like I got to show up here. I have an appointment. I kind of made it. And it almost like keeps them in the habit of doing it, where like there are some people who every single morning they'll get up, they'll plunge, they'll work out, you know, they have those habits that they have created for themselves. But a lot of people want help in maintaining those. And like, we can offer the trusted health professional. This is the place you come to feel better. Mm-hmm. So you come here and you feel better, regardless of if you get on our acupuncture table, regardless of if you get in the cold plunge. Like when you come to my office, you'll leave feeling better.
Right.
What's your craziest success story? Like craziest? Just with cold plunge only, like not including a bunch of things.
Brett Winchester actually staying in for 3 minutes. I feel like that's a personal success of mine. Yeah. Twice. Yeah. 3 minutes, huge. 2 times. Yeah. I mean, we kind of see little miracles every day, to the point. It's the same thing with chiropractic care, right? Like you see somebody get better after something that you've seen fail so many other times and so many other therapies. For a lot of people, most of the benefit has actually been in emotional health, significantly. Like just you're in the suck of it when you're in that cold. I personally love it, but for a lot of people, like they are not happy about getting in the water. And then they have that huge dopamine rush when they get out. And they also are just so present. When you're in the middle of that cold water, you want to be anywhere else, but you are right there. Mm-hmm. And so the emotional benefits that they have of that, you know, people describe just the the better relationships that they have at home, and like being able to be less reactive because they're choosing something that might kill them. Like that's max level nervous system assault.
Right.
And they chose it intentionally and they survived it. So then it's like, okay, well, traffic, who cares?
Right.
You know, my boss is a jerk. Also, who cares?
Right.
Like they're just happier people in general because they're choosing to do that for themselves.
And so, sorry.
I was just say we had the conversation over the weekend when we were plunging that, you know, some research says 2 minutes is kind of like the max effect. For me personally, I can speak at 2 minutes. I feel comfortable.
Yes.
Like, you know, but then to stay for that extra minute, that to me is the emotional and the mental, like building strength. It's like going to the gym and like building strength in your mind, because if you can do that, like you said, you can literally do anything. So that's why me personally, I love doing it right away in the morning, because if you start your day with something like that, the rest of your day can't get anything but better. You know, like
exactly. Eat the frog, right?
Yeah, exactly. So.
And that's the initial getting in there, the first 90 seconds is typically the hardest part for people. So then if you only have 30 seconds beyond the hard part, it's like, oh, okay, sure, cool. You know, and you go on with your day. Yeah. But if you stick it out for another 90 seconds after that, it's just like, yeah, I'm still in it. I'm still doing the thing that is still hard, and I'm still here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're working with like female patients, which you are, like, are you timing this out like with the menstrual cycle? Like,
so in general, during the luteal phase, it typically is more uncomfortable for females to be in the cold water. And so sometimes we'll just tell them, if your toes are burning, because that's one of the things that happens, is it's just so much more sensitive in your fingers and toes. Just put your toes out. Like if you're in kind of the second half of your cycle, it generally feels a little bit more uncomfortable to plunge. I still think that the benefits are outweighing the discomfort, and there aren't really risks specifically. So I will plunge throughout my entire cycle. And I don't discourage anyone from doing that, but I will add, like, hey, if you are a little bit heavy on the stress and you're in your luteal phase, you'll probably feel great getting out at 2 minutes, right? Like sticking it out for any longer is really unnecessary. And that's what, one of the things that I learned was I used to do longer sessions, but it takes longer to recover afterwards. So I just want to get, back to my life and doing the things that I want to do. And I stopped doing longer sessions in my luteal phase just because it was like, okay, I don't really need any more of this stress right before I'm going to start my period. So, yeah.
What about something that I've asked you about a lot is pregnancy patients.
Yeah.
So what are your guidelines on pregnancy, maybe postpartum, and I don't know, maybe age range? Like when's a good time to start? Like do you have younger children? Like we're kind of walk us through all those.
Yeah. So my kids will begrudgingly get in the plunge. And they just stay in for like 30 seconds. They really are not in there. My boys, my oldest just turned 11 and my youngest is about to turn 8. And so they'll get in there and just stay in. Like the max that they've been in is for a minute. Their metabolism is so high and they don't really need all of that excess kind of energy buildup of the thermogenesis. But for pregnant patients specifically, I would not recommend that a pregnant patient get full body into the plunge unless it is something that they have been doing and are comfortable doing just because of the big stress response that's happening. However, if their body temperature, like they have a thermometer in, is maintaining healthy levels, and they're in above 55 degrees, that's something I'm comfortable with. And I actually, I asked that question of the Wim Hof instructor that I've worked with. He's done DNS through exercise 3, and which is why I had him come and teach our Wim Hof courses, because everyone else that I saw teaching Wim Hof was doing like really, really terrible breathing mechanism,
Chest
and so when I met him, he came to a workshop that I did, and he said that he had done DNS exercise and that he was a Wim Hof instructor. And I was like, I need to talk to this guy. His name is Benjamin Pelton. He's awesome. And I asked him what would Wim say about pregnant women in the plunge. And so he kind of offered a little bit of insight, if their body temperature is staying fine, cool. And then I've talked to a couple of, just other various professionals getting their opinion on it. If their body temperature is staying like in a relative normal range and they are comfortable doing it, then, you just weigh your risks and benefits. But I feel totally comfortable getting any pregnant woman in the plunge up to her knees, which is really, really great for women who just like have a little bit of swelling, especially if you have swelling for pathological reasons, then we need to investigate that, and putting them in ice is just going to make them feel better. But we do still need to investigate that. But if women have just, they have a desk job and they've been sitting too long and they have like manual compression that's causing swelling in the lower extremities, it's so helpful for them to just stand in there for 2-3 minutes, and they get out and they're like, oh yeah, that's way better. I feel way better.
In those pathological regions would be preeclampsia,
yeah, exactly.
eclampsia, things like that, blood pressure issues, things along those lines. Got it.
And then in the postpartum time period, once lochia has diminished, and that's just because, so lochia is the bleeding from the inside of the uterus. And so it kind of seems like period blood. But personally, I don't want other people's blood in my plunge. But that also kind of lets me know that they're at significantly less risk of any sort of adverse event. But once lochia has cleared, so that's typically around-ish 6 weeks postpartum, we say go ahead and get in the plunge, because there's really great research on cryotherapy in perineal healing. So it's very, very comfortable to cool that area post-birth. You just kind of give it a couple of weeks to allow the tissues externally to heal and allow that wound within the uterus to heal. And so once lochia has passed, it's really, really great for postpartum healing as well.
Beautiful. And are you kind of adhering to the 11 minutes a week, or do you
personally?
Not necessarily you personally, but the suggestions you're giving a patient. Let's say you have a patient that you think is a good candidate for cold plunging. Like, what are you saying? All right, this is kind of, they ask, what should I do? Like, how often should I do it? What are those types of things?
No one asks me that. That's such a good question. But really, it ends up being this just beautiful form of medicine for people to choose for themselves. So if I say, I really think it's a good idea for you to get in the plunge. I think you've got a lot of stress going on in your life right now. You need to choose how you're going to respond to that stress. Plunge is great training for that. Or you've got this acute situation going on. We can calm that down significantly if you get in the plunge a couple times this week. And then once they've kind of experienced that and seen the benefits, then they just self-select, right? Like they are just kind of like, okay, yeah, the plunge is a thing I want to do. Or for some people, they're like, yeah, I'll try that again in like 6 to 8 months. Like,
once I forget
that
about
was
it.
awful. I'm fine. I'll do it again, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. What about you personally?
I use it on a very regular basis. I had like a nasty. I was just sick for like 3 weeks in the spring, and I did not get in the plunge for a month, and I missed it so bad, but I didn't want to get in while my immune system was already so busy working. It's really great if you're like at the tail end of a cold, get in the plunge, and that'll kind of help kick it out. But if you're not feeling well, it's not a good idea to get in. So I use it on a regular basis. A couple times a year, I'll do like for one entire month, I'm plunging every single day. But other than that, I just get in a couple times a week, and it's pretty fabulous.
Okay. And then, what about what's the perfect patient that you would see as far as your practice that would be utilizing all those services that you have? Meaning they're coming to you for chiropractic, sauna, and cold plunge. I know you kind of said like, hey, if you have an acute injury, but is there, or if you have like a super high work person, workload stress, cortisol levels high, things like that. But is there any like, you're
high performers,
yeah.
So we have, we have a couple different memberships. We have a membership that's just our fitness classes and yoga. And then we have a membership that is all of our recovery things. We used to call it our Recover membership, but now we actually just call it the Mood membership, because that was the thing that people were describing was the reason why they were coming, was because they were having such beautiful benefits emotionally. And it's the people who want to feel good all the time. It's me, it's you, we are those ideal patients who want to move better and feel better. So we therefore get chiropractic care when we don't have pain. Right. We therefore do our corrective exercises and do our DNS rehab all the time. We are the type of people that would sign up for that type of thing. So in our Mood membership, we also have just some compression boots, and you sit in a zero gravity chair and kind of hang out there for a little bit. And we have a vibe plate, and then we also have our yoga class, which obviously we have kind of DNS principles built into all of our classes. Sure. And so we want people who want to feel good in our doors. Sure. And so those are the type of people that we're attracting and kind of like putting out the message of like, if you want to feel good all the time, like if you have a high expectation for what your body feels like, this is the place for you to be.
What about charging? How much?
So our memberships are actually insanely affordable. I should probably know this number off the top of my head, but I don't, because I just send all money conversations out of my door. Right. We do like a $99 enrollment fee to kind of like get you signed up. And then it's $129 a month or $149 a month. And then there's a combo one that's like 2 something. I don't remember, but it's like absurdly inexpensive because the one-off is just, it's $33 a plunge if you're going to do one of those. If you do a Nordic cycle, it's like 44. And then sauna is $1 a minute. Compression boots are, $1.50 a minute. But so if you wanted to do all of those things, you're talking about thousands of dollars worth of services each month. And we do it for like $150 just because I want people to say yes to that.
And that's pretty much unlimited. Maybe once a day is.
Yeah. So what they get is 5 sessions per week. So some people are like 5 plunges a week and that's all they do. And some people are like, I want to do sauna on Monday and plunge on Tuesday and yoga on Wednesday. They just kind of build it out. So cool.
It is affordable, but it's still a good ROI on your part.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I paid off the plunge so long ago. I mean, I paid for it up front, so I paid it off immediately. But like the ROI on it has been incredible.
Well, and then too, like you said at the beginning, you're getting patients in your office that maybe wouldn't already be there.
For a really long time, we were the only place within like a 50-mile radius that had a cold plunge that you could set up an appointment and get into. And so I've had some people reach out to me about like, in some areas, they want to regulate them like pools, which is very strange to me because it's not a pool. But like we could have but we could have a whirlpool tub to do acute injuries like athletic training. Right. So this is the exact same thing, and that's kind of how we're using it in our office. So I haven't run into that problem.
ABC alcohol is going to run that.
Yeah, exactly. We learned
that's a North Carolina state.
North Carolina's got some insane rules. But well, awesome. Yeah. Any closing thoughts or anything that maybe we didn't ask you about, or
I don't know. I mean, realistically, you kind of have to want these things if you want to put them in your practice because it's like until last weekend, Brett would have had a hard time selling someone on the cold plunge, right? Like I know that medicine myself. I'm like, yes, cold is exactly where I need to be and what I want to do. And this will be great for you. And I can look someone in the eyes and tell them that. Like now Brett could do that, right? He's wearing tie-dye. He's doing the cold plunge.
You're with Lindsay for two weekends. And
it's a whole new thing.
Can you imagine if we did 3 weekends?
I feel like
I'd probably be at a fish concert right now. Walking around and saying,
but like you have to appreciate these things. Like if you hate sitting in a sauna, don't get one for your office, right? Like it just doesn't make any sense. The other thing
I want to add though, like the second time I got in, how much easier it was. Like just in the difference of 48 hours. Like it was like drastically. It was. I'm not gonna say it was easy, but it was kind of easy compared to that.
Yeah, just to share Brett's experience a little bit. The first time. We'll not talk about that.
No. Yeah.
Last year. But the second time, the Friday before DNS exercise 2, he got in and he was in for 3 minutes and he was white knuckling it, but he was in and he stayed in for 3 minutes. And then we did it again on Sunday. Well, Taylor and I did it again on Saturday.
Yep.
But Brett got in on Sunday and you opened your eyes after a minute and a half.
Yeah.
Right? Like you were white knuckle, closed your eyes like stiff and And then when you did it again, 48 hours later, you were like, opened your eyes, you started talking to me. Like it was a huge, like complete difference.
And when you get in, it's like, you're just having, it's crazy.
I'm just chilling,
it's like you're in a hot tub.
Okay. One last thing I do want to say. So you do need someone I would recommend someone to run the plunge, but you don't need that, I guess. You don't need anyone to run the sauna. You just need, set somebody up in there and walk away. They don't have personalities, right? So like for people who want to add services, but are a little bit nervous, right? About the HR aspect of like bringing other people into your practice and having it affect culture or whatever. The plunge and the sauna do not have personalities. So like, you don't have to worry about managing that at all.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. I think, to your first point, that's one of the things that we consistently say to our interns too. They're talking about opening their practice or maybe joining a practice that is all cash, or, when we're talking to our docs about selling cash services, if you aren't bought into them, it is impossible for you to sell them. And I think that that's where a lot of burnout comes from, is trying to sell things that you're not 100% bought into.
Yeah.
Like if you yourself do not want to get adjusted, to do acupuncture, dry needling, all these different things, you may not like them, but the benefits of them personally, it's not even a conversation. And it's just so much easier to have those, I don't know, people say difficult conversations, but it doesn't turn into a difficult conversation.
Right.
Like now at this point for you,
it's so easy for me to tell someone that the plunge is going to benefit them. It's so easy for me. Like somebody comes in and their kid's got a little bit of a cold. I'm like, I'd love for you to get in the sauna today. I think this will help it pass a little bit quicker. And they're like, oh, okay. Tell the kids we're getting in the rainbow light show. We put the colors on. They love it.
Sure.
And I have no problem saying that because that's exactly what I do for my kids. So like, giving them what I am doing myself is what I'm offering. Buying into the idea first.
And I think too, if you're a little bit hesitant of this, the sticker shock and things like that, go buy $100 one and put in your own house and just test it. Like go buy ice, go through the pain of doing that early on just to see what you feel yourself. Because, I don't expect anybody to go out of their way and buy a Plunge today after never getting in one. Yeah. But you yourself go try it and just see what you think. I mean, personally, like I have a sauna at my house, just a portable one, and then I have a portable Plunge. And I love it. Like I would have no problem investing into a big one, and I will eventually. But it's just like I think you have to.
Yeah, but now that we got Brett on board,
I know.
Here.
Oh, yeah. Why do you think we're doing this podcast
back here?
Yeah, why do you think we're doing this podcast?
I think the other thing to consider is that if you are a new doc, like I got the sauna when I was in practice for like 6 years, maybe. And it was at that time, it was like $1,200 maybe. Like they're more expensive now because they got more popular. But like if you're starting out, you don't have to get these big items. These are things that like your practice is established and you're looking to add more things. That's who's actually benefiting from this, because then you don't have the sticker shock of like, I'm hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt. Why would I buy more things?
Yes. Might as well get a $20,000 gold one.
Well, it's the same thing with laser and shockwave.
Right.
Too. So
get good with your manual skills first. Add on the icing later.
Beautiful. Do you have a little discount code or a referral code for Plunges?
Oh, I actually do have a link.
Yeah, cool. I'll put it in the show notes.
Bless you.
And then we can help you with that. But I personally, Plunge is. They're the best one.
That's the one.
There's some cool ones too out there, but they're all so bulky and big. Yeah. The Plunge,
it looks sleek. It's nice.
It is. It is really nice. So that's definitely my suggestion. And what's your website if they want to see just kind of how you have it set up and things like that?
TriangleCRC.com.
Beautiful. And then I'll link in there Jake Alex Recovery Center too if you guys are interested in that. I think he's done a good job of branding and setting that up too. So anyway, Lindsay, thank you. We barely touched on females, which is cool. So normally every single time we talk to you, we just talk about chicks. Well, beautiful. If you guys are on the seminar circuit and you're looking, Lindsay teaches a ton of MPI courses. And then also every year we have her and Erica Bolin here in Troy for the Perinatal manual care course. One of my favorite courses, if you have any qualms about treating women, period, this is the course for you. Not only is it hands-on manipulation, manual skills, talk about birth plans, talk about all the aftercare when you do have birth and debunk a lot of myths and things like that. So it's definitely a must take. So
when you do have birth, yeah, okay.
I am a wordsmith, so nobody likes to point out when you mess up a word like Lindsay Mumma too.
Yeah,
it's just it is classic. So anyway,
thanks for
guys,
begging me to be on your podcast.
Yeah, I love it. All right, guys. Well, good luck with patience, and we'll talk to you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Gestalt Education Show. If you liked it, share it, subscribe to it, send it to your friends, send it to someone that needs to hear this message. We really want everyone to be able to tune in and get the best clinical advice that they can, which we're hoping that we're giving to you with these special guests. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, or if you have any suggestions on upcoming conversations, let us know. For a list of our upcoming courses, we're adding them all the dang time. So go to gestaltedu.com, click on courses, and they'll all be right there for you. All right, have a good day.